Hello, folks out there on the internet. I believe we are now live and broadcasting on various platforms. Whatever platform you may be watching on, I can see comments. So if anybody has any questions or comments on X or Facebook or Twitch or LinkedIn or YouTube, I will do my best to address them, especially if they're related to this broadcast, which is specifically a rendering of all the songs on the upcoming album, very imminently upcoming album, almost completed album, Notes from a Holocaust. I'm going to... The album itself is... involves lots of wonderful accompaniment, with Chet Gardner playing all sorts of instruments. But I'm going to do the songs from the album in the order in which I wrote them. Starting last October. They're all songs written between October and the end of December 2023. And I'm going to do them in the order I wrote them, and I'm going to do them in standard tuning. And those who are, really fans, I guess, of my music, or music geeks who are also fans or something, may be aware that I play in DADGAD much more often than standard tuning, but including all of these songs, which all of them I did in DADGAD. But I will be playing them all today in standard tuning because standard tuning is much more commonly used than DADGAD on this most common of instruments called the guitar. And so I'll do them in standard tuning. The reason I'm doing that specifically is not because they sound better in standard tuning, because they don't, but they sound all right in standard tuning, and there's a songbook for the album, which I have made and which is available for free download, along with all of the songs on the album, which you can also find on a SoundCloud playlist, along with the songbook, as well as videos. And the songbook and all that can be downloaded for free at davidrovics.com/Palestine. And so if you are a musician and you want to learn some of these songs, or if you just want to hear me sing them, either way, welcome. And again, if anybody has any comments or questions related to what I'm doing here, should be able to see them pop up. Also, if you have any comments like, this sounds terrible, you need to turn down your input level or something like that, I'm very open to such comments. I do not have a producer. I'm just here in my living room by myself. Yeah. Yeah, in the songbook there are chords and all that. And I'm going to get rid of that banner on the bottom of the screen now, because it's in the way of my hands. And that'd be silly. Okay. But I'll turn back on the comment window here. So yeah, if anybody says anything, I should be able to see it there in my little home studio here. This song I wrote on October 13th. Hear the drones above your head. What were the last words that she said before she joined the thousands dead as the bombs rained down? See the fire in the sky, hear all of the children cry. The tower falls from way up high as the bombs rain down. See the dust rise everywhere. Once it was a building there, then it crashed down from the air as the bombs rained down. Twisted bodies all around, the never-ending buzzing sound, the earthquake shaking all the ground as the bombs rained down. Shattered camps of refugees, necklaces of ancient keys, smell the burning olive trees as the bombs rain down. See the homes, apartment blocks, see the mosques reduced to rocks, feel the awe and feel the shock as the bombs rain down. See the sewage in the street, mixed with blood beneath your feet, before the sonic boom repeats as the bombs rain down. See the darkness of the night, no power for the lights, but the explosions are so bright as the bombs rain down. Nothing left but rubble strewn, nothing rising but the moon, but the next one's coming soon as the bombs rain down. Hear the politicians say there's nothing here to see today. We're punishing Hamas this way as the bombs rain down. Actually, in the recording, then I do the first verse again. But, so just to be really obvious about it for those who are watching this, probably won't put this out as a podcast. It's just a video, and it should be fairly evident that that song, along with many of these songs, only has 2 chords. Many of the songs have 2 chords, others have 3, occasionally there are 4. I don't think any of them have more than that. So these are not hard songs to learn if anybody wants to learn them. And the vocals are often going by kind of, fast paced, but that is not a, you can manage that if you speak the language. They're not going by that fast. Bob Dylan made songbooks, so I can do it. He's wordier than me. The next song I wrote in the series, the Genocide series, is called Stop the Genocide. This is... I had written that last song as the bombs rained down and Stop the Genocide at the time that Kamala and I were on tour in Scandinavia. So these are the 2 songs about this subject that I've actually sung live at protests. All the rest of them I've only done in my living room so far. But on that note, if you're in Portland, I'll be playing in Portland on January 20th. If you're in Southern California, I'll be there at the end of this month doing a few gigs. And also then in France, Southern France in early February, England in later in February, late March in the northeastern U.S., early April as well, late June, early July, Australia. And then in August, I'll do a tour of the West Coast, Northern California. So there's a little, if anybody lives in any of those places, you want to hear gigs or organize gigs even more, please drop me a line. And we can do those songs live. Don't play in standard tuning much, and I especially don't do D minor, but I'm doing all these songs in the key of either D minor or D major, just for simplicity's sake, occasionally using a capo. But this is a song I wrote sometime in October, later October. This technique is a punk rock acoustic technique called hitting the guitar rhythmically. You can do it too. Gotta count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The story begins, they'll say, in the fall of 23, when the inmates in the prison camp broke free, attacking military targets, 400 soldiers dead. If you listen to survivors, so many of them said. Most others who were killed died during the fight as the army came in, destroying everything in sight, smashing down the buildings upon fighters, upon kids. All the evidence suggests that's exactly what they did. Then the Air Force took No time at all to bomb hospitals and churches and to make the towers fall. The Western media just repeats the lies while every minute or so another child dies, buried beneath the rubble of homes and schools and playgrounds, crushed just seconds after hearing the deafening sounds of bombs exploding everywhere underneath the rock slide. Around the world, people chanting, "Stop the genocide!" At least 10,000 killed in just the first 4 weeks. They killed 5,000 children to bomb the men they seek. But what's happened up to this point will pale in compare with the gravity of what I'm about to share. With more than 1 million children, it seems impossible to think the IDF wants no one to have anything to drink. They're bombing water tanks. They're by the ocean side. Around the world, people shouting, "Stop the genocide!" They walled off the ghetto almost 20 years ago, sealed it off on all sides to throttle off the flow of what might go in or out, like things to drink or eat, medicine or people or necessities to meet the needs of 2 million trapped beneath the bombs, beneath the chemical weapons, burning skin like napalm, beneath the bunker busters the U.S. has provided. Around the world, people shouting, "Stop the genocide!" The world watches on, outrage and in fear, as the latest war to end the wars is here. Like the most deadly form of chess, the U.S. Navy in the harbor, as if to dare anyone to try to stop the slaughter, as the facts on the ground are more dire by the second. If we look into the future, how will this be reckoned? We can ask each other in the streets, marching side by side. Around the world, people shouting, "Stop the genocide!" All of those who wondered, what would I have done the last time there was such a Holocaust as this one, are faced with the dilemma that's bursting at the seam. How to stop the madness of this Israeli regime. How to stop the killing before everybody dies, while there are any parents left to hear the cries of their children in the rubble just before they died. Around the world, people shouting, "Stop the genocide!" It occurs to me to mention for the guitarists out there, if you're for the beginning guitarists out there who maybe these songs are for you. You do not need to be an advanced guitar player at all to play any of these songs. You do need to be able to speak a lot of English, but if you're a beginning guitar player, you may or may not have come across this thing with, like, there's a lot of the chords that you'll find in the songbook. They say things like DM/C sharp, or DM/C, or they say D/C sharp. And what that means is you're playing the D minor chord. If it says like in this song, the second chord, DM/C, that just means you're still playing the D minor chord, but then you're putting a C in the bass. So it's like a descending kind of thing. Yeah. And then D major, a lot of the songs do this descending thing that goes down to C sharp. So I was like, that's what we're talking about when it says D/C sharp. That's that. Just for, yeah. So the next song I wrote in the series, which I guess would have been in early November, was this one, which Al Mayadeen TV did an amazing music video for it. You can see that on my YouTube, on the YouTube playlist at davidrovics.com/Palestine. It's amazing. But this song, From the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, was I wrote it at the time that it started becoming a big thing in the press, in the Western press, complaining about this phrase and its supposedly genocidal meaning and all. Bizarre. Which this phrase has nothing to do with genocide. Genocide is what Israel is doing right now. been living there as long as anybody knows. Inventing math and science, how to sail where the wind blows. Poetry, philosophy, religions had their start. Lots of different people made up the beating heart of the land of Palestine, from Safa to Beersheba, from Jerusalem to Rafah, Acre to Rafah, where they dream of the day when Palestine is free from the Jordan River. What am I doing? From to the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, I messed it up, so you can get your money back. People have been living there long as anybody knows. Inventing math and science, how to sail where the wind blows. Poetry and philosophy, religions had their start. Lots of different people made up the beating heart of the land of Palestine, from Safa to Beersheba, from Jerusalem to Jaffa, from Acre to Rafah, where they dream of the day when Palestine is free, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. In the wake of the disasters that had shaken all the world, a new state was declared, a new flag unfurled, and the Nakba engineered with the map redrawn. 750,000 refugees, their homes taken, gone, occupied, invaded by those who call it theirs, where the people are forever in the crosshairs, where they dream of the day when Palestine is free, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Since 1948, the diaspora has grown, within and without the occupation zone. Towns reduced to rubble while the settlements expand, taking up more and more of what's left of the land. And wherever people rise up and see fit to resist, though the colonizers say they're just terrorists, they dream of the day when Palestine is free, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. The logic of the West twists the world on its head, while this genocidal slaughter leaves untold children dead. They ban protests in Berlin, say we don't want to hear about the babies in the rubble, or those paralyzed with fear as the German and American missiles kill and maim, while children wonder why we can't all just be treated the same, as they dream of the day when Palestine is free, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. As far away as anything that could possibly be right, that to want a normal life makes you an anti-Semite, to live in a home that bulldozers won't destroy, where you can travel to the place where you're employed without waiting at a checkpoint where you're likely to be shot, shortening the shortened life that is the one you've got, as they dream of the day when Palestine is free, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Hear the outrage rising from Algiers to Jakarta as the genocidal bombing laying waste to Gaza, while in D.C. and Berlin the politicians shout, celebrate the slaughter as they claim beyond a doubt these marchers in the streets are filled with hate. They must be, since they're marching against a genocidal state, and they dream of the day when Palestine is free, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And I guess it was early November. I'm just going in order here when I wrote the songs. Early November was when there were a lot of news stories in the press that actually, covers this stuff about the acronym that so many doctors in Gaza were writing in indelible markers on the bodies of children. WCNSF, wounded child, no surviving family. For 6 weeks now, the bombing has continued. Every few minutes, another child dies, crushed without warning beneath the rubble of their homes. and that's where her body lies. And those who are pulled out from the carnage, and who may just live to see another day, may first meet a doctor with a marker, who will inscribe 5 letters down to say, writing on the bodies of survivors, an acronym for anyone to see. WCNSF, wounded child with no surviving family. Entire families missing from the register, since they all lived and slept in the same tower block that generations shared. Now it's just a street with a name that last month had a row of buildings that used to be alive with children playing. Now a doctor scrawls on an armless boy as his parents still beneath the rubble laying, writing on the bodies of survivors, an acronym for anyone to see. WCNSF, wounded child with no surviving family. See the lifeless legs dangling at an angle that tell you exactly how they died. One moment they were laying on a mattress, the next one the building opened wide as a 1-ton missile made in California was dropped upon it, and this is how it became a grave for an entire extended family, which is what it is now. Writing on the bodies of survivors, an acronym for anyone to see. WCNSF, wounded child with no surviving family. The U.S. Navy guards the Mediterranean to make sure nobody intervenes, with the bunker busters smashing down the buildings. Each passing hour, another horrifying scene of living children crying for their mothers as they limp past mountains of the dead to the hospital that's also being bombed, to the school that's now a sea of red, as they're writing on the bodies of survivors, an acronym for anyone to see. WCNSF, wounded child with no surviving family. Wounded child with no surviving family. Wounded child with no surviving family. So it was then that we had what they were calling the humanitarian pause so long ago, where they stopped the bombing for, I think, about 6 days, was it? And I wrote this song, Humanitarian Pause. And I use a capo sometimes in the right place to suit my voice, which is what everybody can do with capos. You can also, of course, transcribe songs, like if it's in D minor and I got a capo on the 7th fret, that means it's also in the key of A minor, and you could do it in A minor. But you can do it in whatever key works for your voice. If you're a guy with a fairly high register, then you'll probably be fine with all these keys. But if you're a guy with a low voice or a female, then you probably want to change the keys to a lot of these. That's what capos are so good for. You don't have to learn any other chords. Just use a capo. It's the people's tool. After targeting emergency responders, after blowing up the water tanks and fuel, after bombing all the hospitals and ambulances, after blowing up the mosques and the schools, after bombing all the camps, north and south, the camps of new and former refugees, after fighter jets with bunker buster missiles, after Navy ships shelling from the sea, they'll take a little break from slaughtering the children. Then they'll do it all over again. After bombing all the solar panels, after blasting apart every street, after leveling apartment blocks, turning them to dust, when might they think the bombing is complete? After blowing up the churches and the parliament, after killing families in their cars, after killing families walking down the road with nothing in between them and the stars, and they'll take a little break from slaughtering the children. Then they'll do it all over again. After bombing their own prisoners, beneath the missiles dying there alone, who knows what might be their plan of attack as they kill off so many of their own. After keeping food and water from the people, after making sure all the injured die, along with all the babies in the incubators, as everywhere the world wonders why, they'll take a little break from slaughtering the children. Then they'll do it all over again. I listened to a lot of Al Jazeera. I listened to a lot of other things too, but I listened to a lot of that, and I'm a big fan of Marwan Bishara, the Al Jazeera's chief commentator. And I've gotten a lot of material from him. I don't even have any idea how many of these songs were inspired by Marwan Bishara's commentaries, but a lot of them. And I don't remember who was talking about the museum, that we would have to remember this Holocaust after it's over. But I was thinking about that when I wrote this one, which was the next song in the series that I wrote. In the Congress and the Bundestag, you'll see them wring their hands and say how they wish in hindsight they'd tried to understand, how they wish they'd seen the warning signs and heard the generals speak and believed them when they talked about the vengeance they would wreak, how they should have known this was not idle conversation, how they should have listened harder when they said elimination. Yes, once it's all too late and the graveyards are all filled, once the last Palestinians killed on Manhattan Island in the halls of the UN, the whole world will come together and say never again. They'll open a museum full of relics of the past, for those who used to live there resisted to the last. We'll look at pictures of the rubble with the dead limbs poking through. The viewers will shed a tear and wish the leaders knew before the war ended in the way Ben-Gvir had willed, once the last Palestinians killed. The Parliament, they'll say, perhaps we should have... In the Parliament, they'll say, perhaps we should have listened instead of purging Europe's biggest party of internal opposition. Should have paid attention to the millions in the street, to those massive crowds around the globe voting with their feet. Should have read the signs, should have listened to their words instead of denouncing all the talk of genocide is just absurd. Should have looked at the pictures of the bodies charred and grilled once the last Palestinians killed. When the last tower block was flattened, in the days before the last bakery was bombed, in this total war, when there were still kindergartens, when the hospitals still stood, this would have been the time to question if we should have been sending all those weapons instead of barring them complete. If instead of cheering on the evil enemy's defeat, we might have asked if there was anywhere left for flour to be milled once the last Palestinians killed. When the project is complete and they make the desert bloom, once they finish turning cities into tombs, once the dead are out of sight and buried in the ground, once the rubble has been bulldozed and no one hears the sound of dying children screaming from somewhere down below, once the shopping malls are gleaming and no one needs to know how many babies' bodies are in this soil that we've tilled, once the last Palestinians killed, once the last Palestinians killed. Yeah, it's not like they didn't tell us what they were planning to do. You know, you just have to pay attention to the Hebrew press, but that's not what, the West does. They just consume Israel's English language press releases and ignore the copious amounts of Hebrew press releases where they talk about how they're going to kill everybody. This is how genocide is facilitated. Alistair Hewlett used to always complain about this capo because it detunes the guitar and messes it up. You got to retune. But anyway, I like it. Even though, because it doesn't make a buzz sounding, because of the Kaiser capo. So this was, I guess, what was it? So it was, I think, still early November when the big warnings from the World Health Organizations and other UN agencies were coming out about how what was going to kill far more Palestinians than bombs and bullets was going to be famine and disease if they keep on bombing the hospitals and not letting food and water in, or fuel. Places they reported. If you listen to the news, you'll hear the press conferences and the words they choose to describe the facts on the ground. In the Gaza Strip, you can hear the measured phrases, see the trembling lips, uttering words so rarely spoken. Eyes open wide as one official after the other speaks of genocide from the head of each department. You can hear the powers please. The next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. As the fighter jets rain missiles down from way up in the sky, as the tower blocks collapse with each mission that they fly, as the hospitals are targeted along with everything, as the cameras show us the apocalypse they bring. With no buildings, with no homes, when no structure remains, once it's all been leveled by the ships and tanks and planes, every medical practitioner around the earth agrees the next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. As the Congress writes a blank check to facilitate the slaughter, Biden says he told them to to let in the food and water, but they're not, and nothing happens but more destruction everywhere. White phosphorus burning, any skin a pole exposed to air. Actions making clear that annihilation is the Israeli regime's plan for the Palestinian nation. If you survive the bombings, you don't burn or freeze. The next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. Across the world, from Yemen to Algeria, militias on the move. From Lebanon to Syria, while on the Gaza Strip, if they have a working phone, they're trying to tell us all, don't just leave us here alone. Don't look away as this happens again, while this world still has Palestinians, because for all these refugees descended from other refugees, the next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. And meanwhile, the global press that has been paying any attention to Gaza, which is most of the press outside of the West, but the Western press much more selectively. But the global press has largely, I mean, you know, it's what you hear much less about are the ongoing raids in towns and cities throughout the West Bank that have, since last October, killed more than 300 Palestinians and they've imprisoned many thousands. I think half of the Palestinian prison population now are people that have been arrested since last October for totally, no charges. They don't need charges. They're under military rule. They kill them. They arrest them. It's complete impunity. And they burn down their towns and destroy their cars and olive groves and everything else with, the settlers or the military. And now there's a very little distinction, if any, between the two. And now that the settlers are all armed with thousands of weapons, it's the idea. The two-state solution is a complete joke. I mean, the idea anybody talking about it is a comedian. Basically, it's a ridiculous thing. You got almost 1 million settlers in the West Bank. That's the, historically 22% of the original Palestine. It's a complete ridiculous idea. But and the Israeli regime knows that, and that's why they're trying to commit genocide in the West Bank as well. They're just not doing it with the same kind of tactics that they're using in Gaza of complete destruction of everything. They're doing it a slightly more selective version of genocide in the West Bank. Oh, it says I use a capo for this one. I'll believe my notes, correct or not. I think they've mostly been correct. These are 3 chords. I'm just throwing in a little extra note. You can ignore that. Or do it. As the IOF is bombing Gaza into dust, stunning all the world with the vengeance and bloodlust. Across the walls and watchtowers, across the occupied West Bank, smashing down the buildings are the bulldozers and tanks where they're arresting all the children and keeping them in cells about the size of coffins like one of the rings of hell, while settlers from Tel Aviv, Europe and America carry out the pogroms of Judea and Samaria, releasing a few prisoners as they take some more. Difference is semantic as they're breaking down your door. Settlers are soldiers, machine guns in their hands, there to burn more cars and homes on Palestinian land, there to attack children, there to burn the trees, to commit crimes against humanity in the home of the Pharisees. These men from West Jerusalem, England and Australia, that carry out the pogroms of Judea and Samaria. They've choked marked off every checkpoint, shooting as they will, executing 8-year-olds and the mentally ill, sending in the warplanes, tearing up the streets, along with arbitrary torture, every effort to complete the project that began. I'll let you decide when, 1948 or 1967. It all looks so much like it used to look in Russia as they carry out the pogroms of Judea and Samaria. In the future, when they gaze upon the remnants of what's left of the people that they might call the former tenants, the grandchildren of the pogromists might like to know, where did all the Palestinians go? They'll be too late to change the horrors here unfolding, or the future that the present here is molding, as it was when they colonized Namibia or Kenya, as they carry out the pogroms of Judea and Samaria. As they carry out the pogroms of Judea and Samaria. And it was around the time that the Western press decided it was time to move on and start covering the fact that we were coming close to Christmas and stuff like that, and the genocide was getting more violent and deadly by the day. But after a while, a little while, often the press, then the West just moves on to the next thing. That's how it works in the Western press. And it varies a bit depending on the country, but overall, my generalizations are accurate. I don't make inaccurate generalizations. And so I was, but of course, meanwhile, on Al Jazeera, on Al Mayadeen, on Al Quds, all kinds of other networks, it is a constant, appropriately enough, a constant carnage. And the journalists are being assassinated for covering the carnage because the Israelis don't want it to be covered. And so then I was thinking about Gil Scott-Heron and wrote this. Such a carpet bombing nowhere has ever seen, in the land where everyone is... One, two, three. Such a carpet bombing nowhere has ever born, in the land where everyone is some version of forlorn. We watch the skies light up again, and if the one with the camera falls, another takes their place when duty calls. For the apocalypse will be televised. I'm watching it on this screen, live on camera. The Holocaust of Palestine. As hunger sweeps the enclave, cut off from every side, besieged from each direction, nowhere safe to hide, as the last drops of liquid trickle from a broken main, and waterborne diseases come as surely as the rain. The apocalypse will be televised. I'm watching it on this screen, live on camera. The Holocaust of Palestine. Watch the men stripped naked and humiliated, see the bodies in the open, hear it clearly stated by every UN worker who has managed to survive. If they don't stop, then soon there will be no one left alive. The apocalypse will be televised. I'm watching it on this screen, live on camera. The Holocaust of Palestine. Hear the heads of state make their intentions known. Watch as they illustrate them, as we've all been shown, by destroying every building and leaving no water to drink. If this isn't genocide, then what is it, do you think? The apocalypse will be televised. I'm watching it on this screen, live on camera. The Holocaust of Palestine. Dad forget there's a low D to play there, but I keep forgetting it's not there. And then was when the Lutheran Church in Bethlehem had a nativity scene, as we were getting into well into November, I guess it was, and or perhaps we're into early December by now, I somewhere around there, and they are. And there were the first of the two nativity scenes that I wrote songs about. The first one was at the Lutheran Church in Bethlehem, and it's a rubble with baby Jesus lying there amid the rubble. She was looking for a place to have a baby, but with the hospitals destroyed, she headed south in a donkey cart to give birth to her little boy. She wasn't lying by a manger, no hay beneath her on the ground. She couldn't hear her newborn's cries, with the bombs exploding all around. There's baby Jesus lying in the rubble, a hungry little bag of skin and bones, with his mother Mary broken there beside him, in the place that they were calling a safe zone. Without a blanket, without a drop of water, nothing between them and the sky. The wise men from the east tried to come to see him, but they were trapped at the crossing in Sinai. There's no fuel for the water pumps, only for the drones always buzzing overhead, reminding every child there beneath them, the next moment it could be your mama dead. There's baby Jesus lying in the rubble, a hungry little bag of skin and bones, with his mother Mary broken there beside him, in the place that they were calling a safe zone. He's the Son of God, said the angel, as the babe began to shiver from the cold. There was a twinkle in his eye for a moment, for the rigor mortis took hold. This prophet who was born to save our species, this child who was the only son of all the tens of thousands killed so far, now we can add another one. There's baby Jesus lying in the rubble, a hungry little bag of skin and bones, with his mother Mary broken there beside him, in the place that they were calling a safe zone. In the place that they were calling a safe zone. And then it was so I've been very actively involved as a cultural activist with the Palestinian struggle for 23 years, and it's easy to remember 23 because it all started at the beginning of this century with the Second Intifada, which was the first time I wrote a song on the subject. And many people have, for a very long time, been making comparisons between Israeli policies, genocidal policies towards Palestinians, and the Nazis in Germany during World War II. And there's you know, a lot of us tended to avoid that particular comparison, rightly or wrongly, because of the lack of exact, you know, because of the lack of gas chambers, basically, and the fact that the Nazi genocide was so extremely highly mechanized and quick. You know, it all took place so fast, and so many people were killed. And unlike in many other genocides historically, which are a slower kind of starvation kind of thing, or, you know, don't happen quite as quickly in any case, which is not to say that, you know, anything less horrible about genocides that happen more slowly. But in any case, now all that has changed in the past few months. If it were ever inappropriate to make the comparison, it's not at all inappropriate now. It's inappropriate not to make the comparison. It's obvious that the people carrying out this genocide are actually, and not only obvious according to, you know, analysis or something, it's obvious according to what they're saying, you know, that they're inspired by the Nazis. You know, they're calling themselves Nazis. They're calling this Nakba 2.0. I mean, they're being very clear in Hebrew about what they're doing. They are Nazis, and that's why they're often referred to as Nazis by Hassan Nasrallah, because Hassan Nasrallah has a accurate understanding of world geopolitics and Israeli policies and calls them appropriately as they are. There's a good video, really good video for the song, including one with Farsi subtitles. After so many years of patronage. Is that right? Key, right key? Let me just check. Okay. After so many decades of patronage by the world's greatest empire, after so many potential agreements were rejected by opening fire, after crushing so many uprisings, now they're making their ultimate bid, pursuing their final solution, just like the Nazis did. They forced refugees into ghettos, set the ghettos aflame, murdering writers and poets so no one remembers their names, killing their entire families, the grandparents, women and kids, the uncles and cousins and babies, just like the Nazis did. They're bombing all means of sustaining human life at all. See the few shelters remaining, watch as the tower blocks fall. They're bombing museums and libraries in order to get rid of any memory of the people who lived here, just like the Nazis did. They're saying these people are animals, and they should all end up dead. They're sending soldiers into schools and shooting children in the head. The rhetoric is identical with Gaza off the grid. They've already said what happens next, just like the Nazis did. Words of war for domestic consumption, lies for all the rest, to try to distract our attention among their enablers in the West. Because Israel needs their imports to keep those pallets on the skids. They need fuel and they need missiles, just like the Nazis did. They're using food as a weapon. They're using water that way too. They're trying to kill everyone in Gaza or make them flee, it's true. As the pundits talk of after the war, like with the fall of Madrid, victors are preparing for more, just like the Nazis did. But it's after the conquest's complete, if history is any guide, when the occupying army is positioned to decide, when disease and famine kills whoever may have hid behind the ghetto walls, just like the Nazis did. All around the world, People are trying to tell there's a genocide unfolding, ringing alarm bells. With such a powerful axis and so many lucrative bids, they know who wants their money, just like the Nazis did. Just like the Nazis did. And it became very clear early on that Israel has been specifically targeting journalists, along with all kinds of others. There were 1,000 journalists in Gaza. There are now fewer than 900, because over 100 of them have been killed. That is more than 10% of the journalists. This is not as many random civilians as have been killed. This is not random. This is targeted killing. Samar Abu Daka had his camera in his hand. He was wearing his helmet and his vest. Like Shireen Abu Akleh and so many others, he was easily identified as a member of the press. They can call the killing indiscriminate, but this isn't exactly true. When they're specifically targeting certain people in order to silence the news, they're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. Ola Atala was slain last week, along with 9 members of her family. They were taking shelter in someone else's home after fleeing Gaza City. Ayat Kadura died alongside an unknown number thus far. Her only dream now was to be killed in one piece so they would know who we are. They're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. Mohammed Abu Hattab with Palestine TV, dead with his family of 11. Mustawa El Sawaf was killed in another, along with his wife and 2 sons. Sari Mansour was killed in an airstrike on a refugee camp. Mohammed Abu Hasira, along with 42 relations, slaughtered with another familicidal stamp. They're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. They hope that if they kill the messengers, they can stop the message getting out. If they can smash all of the cameras, silence everyone shouting, trying to shout out to the world that might listen and see the horrors happening beneath the Palestinian skies, the slaughter that for now we can still see with our own eyes. They're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. Then, on that date, when was it? Early December, I believe, when 3 of the hostages, Israeli soldiers who had been hostage by Hamas there in Gaza, they've escaped captivity and were trying to be rescued by the Israeli soldiers. And instead they were killed by them. And what this indicates is not incompetence on the part of the Israeli soldiers. What this indicates is that their policy is to kill anything that moves. That's what it indicates. They were raising a white flag. They were trying to be rescued. They took off their shirts so they wouldn't pose a threat, just like they were trained to do. They were shouting out in Hebrew, "We're the ones you're looking for." But the soldiers didn't hesitate. They just opened fire because it's that kind of war. They were raising a white flag in the wrong place at the wrong time. Did they not know the rules had changed now? Existence was a crime. They were people alive in Gaza, where living is compressed between the time when you are born and the time you get a bullet in your chest. They were raising a white flag, just more evidence that proves the rules of engagement are shoot anything that moves. When you see the broken bodies of all the children dead, including the ones who were shot point blank at a UN shelter squarely in the head, they were raising a white flag, which moved and made a blip on the screen of their computers. Click the button, let her rip, and blow up the whole building, because you saw someone survived. Because in a war like this, the enemy is anyone left alive. They were raising a white flag. I wrote a poem next. You don't need the sheet music or the chords, but I'll do it anyway because I'm doing all these pieces I wrote on the genocide in order, so I won't skip the poem just because it's no song. Where did all these terrorists come from? I heard Gallant and Austin talking to the press, looking strong for the cameras. How could they do less with all that's arrayed against them, from the Houthi army in Sana'a, from the shores of Lebanon to the fighters in Gaza? Thousands and thousands of terrorists. Terrorists everywhere. Terrorists taking hostages and never fighting fair. Dying in such numbers and then fighting back some more after all our efforts in war after war after war. Where do these terrorists come from? What is it that makes them tick? Is there something in the water that makes them a bit thick? Maybe it's the weather that gets them all so mad. Perhaps it's their schooling and the childhoods they had. Raised to rage and fight, to praise the martyrs past, indoctrinated with ideas like fighting to the last. Or it could be just that Disney is too much to tolerate, and to look at Donald Duck just fills them up with hate. Maybe they're all homophobes who don't like our gay bars. They don't like us because we drink too much and have adult film stars. So many bigoted people who think we're underdressed, rebelling against the infidel bikinis of the West. Maybe they don't like our music. Maybe they just want to kill. Maybe they're brainwashed by their imams and they're following God's will. Maybe they like the Russians and they're Putin's tools. Or maybe they just believe in Sharia rule. Maybe they don't like freedom and offensive French cartoons. Maybe they don't like that story about the red balloon. Maybe they fear the future. They reject modernity. They want to keep their people in a feudal society. Perhaps they don't like HBO, or it could be CNN. Maybe they're afraid it could liberate their women. Maybe it's our sex shops or the drugs we've legalized. Maybe that's the reason why the West is so despised. It could be that they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Perhaps they read Mein Kampf and got ideas in their heads. Maybe they're anti-Semites. They don't like Jews. Who knows where they got their violent views? Maybe they're still resentful since the Inquisition. Maybe they want to control the world, the jihadi mission. Or perhaps they just have issues anyone could understand, like invaders stole and occupied their land. And of course, I wrote that right around the time that the Ansar Allah, popularly known as the Houthis, began to board ships bound for Israel in order to prevent Israel from committing against genocide, because they need a lot of imports to commit their genocide, like bombs from the U.S. and a whole lot of other things. And most of the world still trades with them. So I wrote this song, and which there's a wonderful video for, which you can find at davidrovics.com/Palestine. Half the world's trade passes by here. So much of it goes through Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, in the port of Gaza, no ships can arrive and not a boat can leave. While every day hundreds are dying beneath the rain of missiles fired from the air. Millions of starving Palestinians on the run, being slaughtered everywhere. No safe place in the Gaza Strip. No armies coming to defend. While all over the planet, people are asking, when will this savage bombing end? How many more thousands of children can be killed while we stand by? How can we just live our lives while we watch the babies die? Shukran jazilan to the Houthi army, standing for the conscience of us all, when they say no business as usual, while the bombs continue to fall. For a country that doesn't have an air force, they're painting black, red, green, and white on the helicopters that they use to board the ships to show their cause is right. The president says this terrorism must stop right away, to which the Houthis respond, yes, that's exactly what we are trying to say. Shukran jazilan to the Houthi army, standing for the conscience of us all, when they say no business as usual, while the bombs continue to fall. Ships are going all the way around Africa to avoid the Houthi net. If Israel wants trading partners now, they might be just a little harder to get. We can blockade ports all over, north, south, east, and west. But the Houthi army are the ones who are no doubt blocking the traffic the best. Shukran jazilan to the Houthi army, standing for the conscience of us all, when they say no business as usual, while the bombs continue to fall. Thanks for all the praise on those comments. And as for those questions, some of the questions I don't know the answer to, so I'll just not try to answer them. But good questions. Yeah, so there's a very old concept, wonderful, wonderful movie made with the same title by Ken Loach called Land and Freedom. And everybody needs to see Land and Freedom, as well as the Battle of Algiers. And if you want a longer list of movie recommendations, I'm happy to provide it. But start with those two. And this is a song I wrote on the same subject, but it's about Palestinians. Because, as anybody knows who's followed the Palestinian struggle for the past 75 years or so, or less, it's about land and freedom. It's about sovereignty, self-determination, and land, land very fundamentally. And in Palestine, there's a annual thing called Land Day, an annual, what do you call it? Holiday commemoration, commemorating a massacre from 1976, and at a protest, one of so many massacres of Palestinian protesters. And then it was also the inspiration, well, partly for the Great March of Return and the, this Land Day. I believe it began, the Friday protests began on Land Day and continued for a year and a half with massacres every week. I wrote songs about that, but I'm not going to do them because these are all songs from October to December. And wrote a song called Land Day about that, but this is called Land and Freedom. You can paint it as war of good and evil. You can pretend your cause is just. You can try to say you have the moral army, and the other is just driven by a bloodlust. You can say you're on the side of Western values, and the others represent barbarity. You can say your enemies want chaos, while you stand up for peace and prosperity. You can keep on telling lies from here to kingdom come, but all that anybody wants is land and freedom. Say they've got the wrong religion. You can say that they just want to hate. You can drop bombs upon their cities. You can say your God is great. You can speak of punishment and lessons, how you must eliminate all the terrorists that you had to slaughter in the course of your affairs of state. You can keep on telling lies from here to kingdom come, but all that anybody wants is land and freedom. You can claim that you represent the future, and the other represents the times of old. You can talk about how liberated your people are, not like their feudal patriarchal mold. You can talk about your love of life and liberty. You can paint a death mask on your foe. You can say what you like about your enemy, but you can't change what everybody knows. You can keep on telling lies from here to kingdom come, but all that anybody wants is land and freedom. Land and freedom. Land and freedom. Someone just shared the link, davidrovics.com/songbook, and that does have all the lyrics to all of my songs in it. But the songbook in question here, which isn't on that site quite yet, is at davidrovics.com/Palestine, and that's where you can find both the lyrics to all these songs as well as chord charts for all of them. And I will also integrate that into the songbook section of my website, so it's less confusing. But for now, everything about Palestine from the past few months, the most up-to-date place to find all of it, including the songs in the songbook, is at davidrovics.com/Palestine. And the album will be out very soon, and will be, I think Chet, my wonderful engineer / multi-instrumentalist in Hawaii, I'll be interviewing him next week, I believe, to talk about the technical aspects of the album for more, folks out there who might be interested in such things. I, thought I'd do this one for this broadcast also for technical people interested in playing, the songs on the guitar. And next week it's for the people who do home studio stuff and want to hear about this brilliant man in Hawaii who has done wonderful things to all these songs, which you will know if you've listened to them on my website. And the original versions I put out are usually solo acoustic, and then I get them souped up by Chet. And that's been the process for this album project and for the Gaza cycle of songs, which is one of the same. This is when Biden said they're killing indiscriminately, which was a nice thing to say, although, while he's providing them a blank check, like Israel has had for my entire lifetime from the U.S. To bomb as many people as they want to. But he said it's indiscriminate, and it's actually worse than indiscriminate. Another song, I don't, other people say the same things, but, this is another song that definitely was very much inspired by Marwan Bashar's commentary on Al Jazeera. They bombed the Jabalia camp once again. Once again, those killed are all women and children. No one can keep track of the numbers of dead, or find which torso belongs to which head. Bodies are lying in what's left of the streets. Sometimes someone covers them up with sheets. Surrounded by destruction wherever you look. No way to fathom all the lives that they took. And they call it indiscriminate. Would be so terrible if true. But they're targeting doctors, they're targeting patients, they're targeting journalists, they're targeting poets, they're targeting women, and they're targeting children too. However this slaughter might come to an end, whoever remains alive to defend the right for a people to simply exist, whoever is still here to raise their fist, will never forget the war that was waged on a city imprisoned by a gigantic cage, an air force against civilian homes of those not protected by the Iron Dome. They call it indiscriminate, would be so terrible if true. But they're targeting doctors, they're targeting patients, they're targeting journalists, they're targeting poets, they're targeting women, and they're targeting children too. Who will be left to remember those killed when the air has cleared from the smoke that filled the whole city with poisonous gas, burning the skin off the children it passed, turning old towers into piles of rocks as those watching try to comprehend through the shock that they just killed 70 members of one family in this month of December. They call it indiscriminate, would be so terrible if true. But they're targeting doctors, they're targeting patients, they're targeting journalists, they're targeting poets, they're targeting women, and they're targeting children too. Who will be left to remember those killed when the air is cleared from the smoke that filled the whole city with poisonous gas, burning the skin off the children it passed, turning whole towers into piles of rock as those watching try to comprehend through the shock that they just killed 70 members of one family in this month of December. They call it indiscriminate, would be so terrible if true. But they're targeting doctors, they're targeting patients, they're targeting journalists, they're targeting poets, they're targeting women, and they're targeting children too. I don't have to explain to you when I wrote this next song, but it's about the second nativity scene that I wrote a song about, which is another one of the churches in Bethlehem. It's Christmas Eve. Stores are stuffed to the gills with last-minute shoppers making sure all the stockings are filled. The Santas and elves are all busy posing for photos with kids. And 365 days ago, that's just what they did. It's Christmas Eve in front of the wall. The guy from the Salvation Army stands beside the entrance to the mall, holding his bucket with a toothless smile. Ringing his bell, he'll shiver in the cold, and he'll wish us well. It's Christmas Eve, kids rich and poor across the country anticipating, sitting on the floor, opening presents, having a party, or waiting till the morn. Some of them singing songs about a child that was born. It's Christmas Eve, people gather around in suburbs across America. You'll likely hear the sounds of pianos and guitars and choirs singing songs about Bethlehem, gathered round the nativity scene. Every year you can hear them. It's Christmas Eve, when some people dream about a world free of war and want and similar themes. People give money to charity, and they hope for the best. Scenes like these unfolding all over the West. It's Christmas Eve, but in Manger Square, no strings of lights, no celebrations anywhere. And in place of the Christmas tree, where it would normally stand, there's Mother Mary with a lifeless baby in her hands. It's Christmas Eve. I got two more for you before I go pick a kid up at school. This one has possibly the best music video that my anonymous filmmaking friend in California made. You can find it at davidrovics.com/Palestine in the videos section there. If you are a fan of democracy, if you have a problem with state theocracy, if you're having issues with minority rule, or with the propaganda they teach your kids in school, you don't like invading armies bent on thievery, if you think it's wrong to steal someone else's country, there's just one explanation, though it may be getting trite. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. If you don't like the idea of shooting mortar rounds at kids, it must be because you just don't like the kids. Israel bombs hospitals, if you heard that on the news. It must be because that network doesn't like the Jews. All those UN agencies crying genocide secretly still blame us for the way that Jesus died. There's just one explanation we keep within our sights. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite to think free speech is a really good thing. If you fear the future that censorship may bring, if you think Mark Zuckerberg is a pawn of the CIA, if you don't believe whatever the Western leaders say, if you march and chant from the river to the sea, if you say you'll keep fighting until Palestine is free, there's just one explanation right there in black and white. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. If you're not a fan of home demolitions, if you've got some kind of problem with the Zionist position, it can't be just that you care about humanity. It can't be just that you want some sanity. If you don't like the slaughter, you'd better just stand by. Don't speak out or else we'll all know the reason why. There's just one explanation, the one from the far right. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. And there's one more in the series. It's the last song that I wrote so far on this subject. I wrote it on December 31st. And so anything I've written later than that, or anything I write later, that'll go on some other album. But this one will be all from October to December. It'll be called Notes from a Holocaust. It'll be on all the streaming platforms by the end of this month, and it will soon be up on Bandcamp and on davidrovix.com/Palestine. And if you're in Portland, please come downtown January 20th. I'm playing in downtown Portland, Concert for Palestine. I'll be doing a lot of these songs as well as others, and it'd be great to see you there. It's a benefit for the International Middle East Media Center, IMEMC.org. Great source of information. Antidote to Israeli propaganda. And if you're in Southern California or Southern France or England or the Northeastern United States or Australia or later the West Coast, I'll be doing tours in all those places between now and August. And all the information is on my website, davidrovix.com/tour. And if you are able to support me, I do this for a living, such as it is. Sit around my living room writing songs, and it's not remunerative work unless people donate. So, and that's my means of paying the rent, although I consistently spend more than I make. So if you want to be a supporter, that would be great, because it doesn't work to spend more than you make. The rent keeps going up. davidrovix.com/subscribe is where you can learn about or just join my community-supported art program. It's also, you can also do it on Patreon or on Bandcamp or on Substack. Same community-supported art program, CSA. And I'll do one more song. Thanks for listening. This will all be archived on all the platforms where it's at now. Probably most easily found on YouTube later along the line. This is called If a Song Could Raise an Army, which would be very nice. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. If a song could take down borders, take down fences, make them fall, liberate all those imprisoned, kept behind the ghetto walls. If a song could stop the bombs, so the next might be the last. If a song could change the future, so it won't be like the past. If a song could be a missile fired from the Iron Dome. I'm just messing up the chords. I'm just gonna do this whole song again from the beginning, because I do think it's one of the best songs I've written, and I just can't stand butchering the whole thing. So let's just start that over again. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. If a song could take down borders, take down fences, make them fall, liberate all those imprisoned, kept behind the ghetto walls. If a song could stop the bombs, so the next might be the last. If a song could change the future, so it won't be like the past. If a song could be a missile fired from the Iron Dome, if it could protect the children, keep them safe within their homes. If a song could raise an army and transport it on command to take take us all to Palestine to defend the Holy Land. If a song could be concrete and put to use to rebuild, if it might turn back the clock and bring back all the babies killed. If a song could be a blueprint, instructions to show us how. If a song could be a blueprint, instructions to show us how. If a song could change the world, then let us do it now. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. Thank you all for listening. I hope to see you on the road and in the streets. If you live any of the places I will be touring in, including Portland, Oregon, but also, anywhere else in the Northwest, California, Southern France, England, Australia, Northeastern U.S., anywhere I'll be, I am available to sing for free at protests and also to do gigs that are not free. Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.